good evening, viewer, and welcome to Take on Tech. This is a program that comes to you every Thursday evening, and it explores technological issues, breaks them down into simple language that ordinary citizens can engage in. In today's program, we are going to be looking at community networks. What are community networks? What are they? How can people build their own? And before we go on, we'll have a panel of experts to break down the issues for us, but we want to know what are our social media handle so that we can engage. Over to you, Jane.
Thank you, Grace. Good evening and a warm welcome once again to Take on Tech. My name is Jim Boy. We are glad you are with us this evening. As aforementioned, tonight we're going to be focusing on community networks and how you as a citizen and your community can be able to come up with your own that will help you as a community. Now, when you talk about community networks, these are simply computer-based systems that are intended to support the communities.
Thank you so much, Jane. We are experiencing some technical problem there, but we will come back to you. But if you want to engage with us, please follow us on Twitter handle at KBC Channel 1, and the hashtag is TakeOnTech. I would want to introduce to you our panel of experts, and from the very far end, we have Michuki Mwangi.
Thank you.
Karibu sana Michuki Mwangi.
Thank you for having me.
Michuki is the Africa Development Manager for the Internet Society, and I think he'll be telling us more about that. Next, we have Josephine Miliza.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Josephine Miliza is a network engineer and works also on community networks at the Kenya ICT Action Network. That's Kictanet. Karibu sana, Josephine.
Asante, Grace.
And next is the famous tweeting Chief Francis Kariuki. Thank you very much for coming all the way from Nakuru to be on this program to tell us what you're doing in terms of community networks and how you're working with communities in Nakuru. Back to you, Jane. I am told your mic is working.
Yes, it is back. We do apologize for that technical hitch. This is what happens with live TV. But of course, we are still glad that you are with us. My name is Jen Wamboy, and as aforementioned, tonight we're going to be focusing on community networks and how citizens can go about in building their own community networks. And when we talk about community networks, these are simply computer-based systems that are intended to support communities using networking technologies. Now, that is a concept that we are going to be delving deeper into to help you better understand it on a very simple and layman level. So please, if you have any questions, any comments or clarifications in regards to this discussion, feel free to send them through using the hashtag TakeOnTech on Twitter. Our official station handle is at KBC Television. My colleague, you can find her as Jige Thaiga, and myself, my handle is the Genuine Boy. And of course, our SMS number is 20154. Do leave a name and location. We'd love to know where you're watching us from this evening. Without much further ado, let's get straight into the discussion. Back to you, Grace.
Thank you so much, Jane. Michuki, just tell us in very simple language and in a way that somebody will understand on the street, what are community networks?
So the simplest example I could use is something we are very familiar with. In the rural areas or part of where the government is not able to provide public services like water, the community actually comes together and forms a project or establishes a project to provide water. They dig up a borehole and put a pump and tanks, raise overhead tanks and piping so that everybody is able to get clean water. So basically, this is when the community comes together to provide what is an essential basic services to themselves. Community network takes a very similar approach, but now this is when the community comes together to build a telecommunications infrastructure, or in other words, like an internet service provider, where they actually connect themselves to the internet because for one reason or the other, the service providers are not able to come to them and provide them the service at an affordable cost. So they build the network, they own the network, the very same way they own a water project. They own this network, it belongs to them. They set the service, they set up the terms of use. The same way with water, you know how much you pay per unit of water. So you will come up as a community and agree what the fees will be so that the project is sustainable. So the community network is basically a telecommunications infrastructure built by the community for the community to use it.
Sounds like democracy. For the people, by the people.
Yes.
Now, what I will still ask you, what would you say is the difference then between a community network and the ordinary services that we get from, say, Safaricom, Orange, or Airtel?
So there are two things to it. First is that the model that is used is different, meaning that in the case of when the service is brought to you, you don't own the service, you're only a subscriber to the service. So any benefits that you get from that particular service is what you're able to draw from the service. And that's it. You pay and you get a service. When you own the network, it's different because then you're actually able to define what this network means to you. What value do you get from this network? And in so doing, it means you look at it differently. You know, if you have a farm and you're going to farm, it's very different from when you're employed to go and farm. Because someone tells you this is how you farm. But if you own the farm, you decide what value am I going to get from this farm? And so you choose what you're going to do with it. So it's the same thing with the network, that since you own it as a community, you can decide what value you will put on this particular network. So if you choose that you're going to put content that is valuable to the community, then it actually benefits the community. Which is different because what you get from the other service providers, they're just reselling a product, which is the internet. So what you're really getting from the Safaricoms and the Airtels and the Orange and the Liquid is them reselling the global internet as we know it, the social media networks, or the websites, you know, and so on and so forth. Or you going to watch, you know, video that others have put in. And you can also contribute. But for you to be able to build on something onto it, then you have to look at it more differently. But when you own the network, the infrastructure, then it gives you the opportunity to actually say, what value do we want to get out of this network as a community? And that's where the difference comes in. The other benefit is that when you get the service from the telecom operators, you pay for it. We say you're poorer for communicating because you've gotten access, you've paid for it, and the operator takes the money and they do not reinvest in that community. But with a community network, any surplus revenue you generate from that business, you can reinvest it back in the community. And we've seen community networks around the world that are actually doing so with the surplus revenue they generate from that community network. So think of it this way. If you have a water project and everybody is paying their bills and it's working well, what do you do next? You start piping.
Right.
So that everybody has piped water in the house.
Right.
You move from going to the borehole to getting piped water. So it's the same because it's the community's self-determining on what they want to do next with that project. So the same thing with the community network. The community self-determines on how they benefit from it.
Okay. Josephine, do we have examples of community networks in this country?
Yes, we do. We have Tunapandanet Community Network, which is located in Kibera, that started in 2016. And also my colleague, Chief Francis, will share about also a community network in Lanet that started this year. So just to build on to like the conversation that Ms. Chuki started around identifying what the value is that when we talk about digital inclusion, And we see statistics around like how Kenya has been connected and everyone has access to the network. I think there's a gap in translating into like what are really people using this connectivity for, or what are people using internet for. And we find that in urban areas, it's more around like access for convenience. And in rural areas or underserved areas, it's more around access that changes or impacts like your economic status or your social status as well. So as TunapandaNet community network starting in 2016, it was more around promoting digital inclusion in Kibera and looking at how does really internet impact the community that we work into. So Tunapanda Institute is a vocational training center located in Kibera, and they do training around tech, design, and business. So starting the community network was born out of a reach where we see that internet can actually change lives, can actually impact. But what we were seeing more is that when you walk around and you see youth accessing like mobile phones, it was more towards Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. So our goal of starting the community network was really around like how do schools utilize the internet to better education, to get access to better education? How do youth centers and women's centers utilize internet for them to be able maybe to generate more revenue? So we partnered with the Internet Society and this year with the Association of Progressive Communications, who have been of great support to us. And with that, we are now looking to close the year with not just 13 centers as earlier anticipated, but we really gained traction, and we're looking to close the year with connecting 18 centers, 15 of them being schools, and then the 3 being the youth center and the women's centers.
Okay, we will come back to that question about connecting schools and centers. But I just wanted you to clarify, you keep talking about digital inclusion. What is digital inclusion in simple language?
Digital inclusion is the ability for people to get access to the internet and digital technologies. So internet is an example of the digital technology. So if you own a phone, that is an example of someone who has been digitally included. So there is where we talk about like digital inclusion gaps, is where we say you don't have access to even like mobile phones, or you cannot be able to call, or some areas where the connectivity is very poor, or you don't have access to the internet. So there is the aspect of now the communication side and the devices side. Yes.
Okay, Chief Kariuki,
Yes,
the
madam.
tweeting chief.
Yep.
You're based in Nakuru.
Yes.
And I was looking at your Twitter handle. You have over 66,000 followers. And I am told you run a community network.
Yes.
So please tell us what purpose that community network serves, or in general, what do community networks, the purpose that they serve, from your experience?
The community network that we have in the net, we just trained the leaders, what we call the cluster leaders. We trained some women. And what is going to happen is that this thing is going to bridge the digital gap between the have and the have-not. We find that the difference between those who have and those who do not have is information, or affordable information. So what is going to happen is that we are going to have like servers there where people can put their content, they can put their data there. Say, for example, it's a mama mboga, they are selling something, and they just, for example, what has been in Twitter, what I used to do, the SMS system is that maybe you're selling something, you're selling a cow to raise school fees. What I'll do is I put on Twitter, and then people will see that Michuki or Mama Michuki is selling a cow, and somebody need a cow on the other corner. And that way they will do business almost at a zero cost, because you find that maybe sometimes conventional kind of advertisement sometimes is out of reach for the ordinary person. But when this community network, because they own it, they are going to as you hear the word, is going to connect them to each other. The schools, the churches, the youth, the women. Because sometimes the struggle that the communities have is that we have some infrastructures that have not reached the people, as Michuka said. Like, say, for example, the roads, improvement of the roads like that. Then, when you have the roads, what do you do with these roads? That's the most important thing. So what we are trying to train the people is that to be able to use the internet or the network in order to improve their livelihood. Yes.
It's very interesting because you mentioned that one of the purpose is to connect people and to connect people with information.
Yes.
We know information is valuable.
Yeah.
And where things are working, we know it's because there's information.
Yeah.
Now, Michuki, the community networks are sounding like a very good idea where people put up infrastructure and they're able to network and get to access the internet. But I'm just wondering, if you look at the ordinary or the traditional telcos, they invest heavily on infrastructure. And I'm wondering, where would ordinary people get funds to put up that infrastructure? In other words, how are these community networks funded?
So, and that's a very good question, which actually is what makes part of the difference between community networks and the large mobile operators or telcos. At the beginning, a community network really will deploy an infrastructure that is affordable. Part of it is because if you make the network expensive, it becomes very difficult for everybody to use it, because for you to sustain and run and return your investment, it will be very costly. So we use low-cost equipment, meaning things you can actually easily walk into a shop and buy and come and use to install. So things that are also locally available. We are not going to recommend that you build a network with things that can only be shipped from one provider or one manufacturer who is based in a foreign country. Yes, the equipment will be made outside the country, of course, but they should be locally available. So that means it's something that is affordable. And then also part of it is because it's wireless, it means use the community to build a network. So fabrication of masts should not be something you're importing. It should be something that is built by the community. So if there's a local welder, he becomes part of the owner of the community network by using what we call sweat equity, because the sweat equity means that you own something through the sweat you've contributed, in putting it up. So if you helped put up the mast, then your sweat equity in the network has already been invested, right? So so you basically involved everybody in the community. Now, there are organizations out there that will help with the initial seed capital to build the network. And also the community can contribute the very same way they actually take the approach. And that's why I use the example of the water project or the borehole project. Is also the community contributes. So members will contribute a certain percentage and also go out and seek funding from other organizations. The Internet Society does that. APC, Association for Progressive Communications, does that. And there are others. And in fact, at this point, we're also engaging policymakers and governments to look at the use of universal service funds to help supplement or support the build of community networks. Because the objective of universal service funds is to actually provide connectivity in areas that do not make commercial sense. And so the reason why most of the people in underserved areas are there is because there's no commercial sense for the large operators to go to those areas. And so the Universal Service Fund can be used to actually help build community networks in those areas.
Tell us more about the Universal Service Fund. I mean, for that ordinary Kenyan who has no idea what the Universal Service Fund is all about. Please break it down and tell us how ordinary citizens can benefit.
Well, it's a tricky question to answer, but basically Universal Service Fund is a fund that has been created where commercial operators actually contribute a certain percentage every year, and that percentage is used to basically improve the coverage or telecommunications coverage across the country. So it's used to expand the coverage to areas where it is not commercially viable to go to for some of these operators. So that's an investment that is sort of made. And so in some cases, going to some areas still does not make commercial viability, even if you make the investment, because the operating of the network in those areas is also difficult.
Okay.
So, and so the fund is managed through the regulator, Communications Authority, and so they make the rules and regulations about how the deployment, the use of the Universal Service Fund is deployed, or rather is used in the country.
Okay, maybe Chief Kariuki, who is in government and who is known to run projects that benefit the community, can tell us whether you have benefited from the Universal Service Fund.
I think for now, since we just started, is the time, because first of all, we are working with AFCHICs, that is Women and Technology, and also supported by USAID and ISO, and who are helping us to start off. So for now, I wouldn't say directly that we have benefit from it, because as a chief, somehow I will not be directly involved in sourcing of funds. Mine is to mobilize the community to help themselves. But I also wanted to interject with what he was talking about, the funding of the networks. To say that the first thing is that we first of all train the ground engineers who come from that community, which means that what they gain, what they come from the community, helps to pay them. It generates funds for them, and then it's plowed back to the internet. I mean, to the network. So it is very easy, because anything that is gained goes back to
the community.
To the community. So it's their project. Other thing we have done is that is to talk to different people who have maybe buildings that we can put those radios like that, and when we network with other people, the stakeholders, the members of the community, the churches. We are going to work with mosques, we are going to work with schools, we are going to work with hospitals. So some of these things will be very easy to do, because it is a benefit of the community.
Okay. Yeah. Josephine, you talked about Tunapanda as one of the pioneering networks and based in Kibera. And I know also you talked also of one in Lanet. And I assume there'll be many others coming up, or there are many others coming up.
The goal is to have more, because if you look at the numbers of how many people are connected, there's still, the percentages are such that there's still more people that are not connected, and we would like to bring the next billion of people online. And so to do so, we have to look at alternative models of connecting people.
Would this cure this idea of certain villages going, congregating at a certain tree, or having to climb on top of one shop to get the signal?
Yes, I mean, and a very good example is the community network in Eastern Cape of South Africa called Zenzeleni, where they've actually managed to create an entire mesh, wireless mesh network. So within your house, you have access to the internet, and you pay a fixed amount per month. I think it was 25 rand.
Yes, 25 rand a month.
Yeah, 25.
Which is equivalent of how many shillings?
Times 10.
About 300 shillings.
Yeah, mesh.
Yes, so a mesh network is basically, you put affordable radios close to each other, so they talk to each other like in a mesh, like creating a chicken mesh
Okay.
network. Yes.
Like kichungi.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So they talk to each other so that they carry their signal across without having to build long connection links. You just do a mesh as you go closer to where the primary connection of the internet will be. And so, and they've been able to do that, and they're able to provide unlimited access monthly for about 300 shillings a month for the whole community. So you don't need to go and find a spot. Your house is the spot.
It's a spot.
Okay.
So, yes.
Which is very interesting because Mishuki, I know you're a techie. Josephine here is an engineer, network engineer. I know Chief Kariuki and I are not techies. But what skills does one require to run a community network? Can, for example, anyone who does not have technical know-how run a community network?
Yes, I think from my experience is that you actually do not need like a whole degree to be able to run and operate a community network. In that when you look, I remember Michuki once gave like a very interesting example is that in the village we have plumbers, we have electricians who were just taught like very hands-on skill on how to do it. So in the deployment of the network, it's not really about like the most like theoretical work that is covered in the degree, but really hands-on on just how to operate the equipment, which in my experience working with youth in Kibera, for example, in my team that I work with, I'm the only one with a degree. The rest of people who just finished high school and now joined the team and started now working on the network.
I'm interested in knowing what skills,
What skills?
are needed. I am imagining there's somebody also somewhere, say in some village or not just in Lanet, say in Mangu or in Bondo.
Yes.
And they're watching and thinking, okay, I'm interested in running a community network, but what skills do I need?
I would say first, I think there's the basic like knowledge on how to operate a computer, but these days I would say like a mobile phone, and that enables you to now just learn how like the network works, how like connection works. When we talk about internet connection, it's just like passing message that we would have passed by word of mouth, but now we are using wires or some different type of technology for it to be able to operate. Then the second part, I think, which is very important, is like mentorship from an expert who has done networking skills. But then the training that someone at a grassroots level will undergo, it's not a 4-year course. It's just like, it can be a one-way course, just on how, this is how the technology operates. So if the equipment that you're using, showing them, this is when we connect these two equipment, this is what happens. And when you go to do a connection, you're going to do step 1, 2, and 3, and that's it. So there's the networking aspect that someone needs to know. And then there's the other aspect of teaching now other people how to utilize it. So for example, if we are connecting the schools, we have a team of those who are interested in the networking, and then we have a team who are interested in training the community on how to use it. Yes.
Okay, you're watching Take on Tech, a program that breaks down technological concepts and explores how you as an ordinary citizen can engage and understand. And today we are talking about community networks and how ordinary people can build on their own. Before we continue, and as we continue, we'd like to hear what's happening on social media. Over to you, Jen.
The hashtag we are using on Twitter is Take on Tech, and we're going to get straight to it. Let's start with the pictures that we received earliest. We have Kalini here who is saying, together we can create the world one community at a time.
Again, Jen, sorry for that interruption. We are told that your mic has a problem, and as they look into it, we will continue. And no, I'm told, Jen, that you can actually go on. You can actually go on. Over to you, Jen.
Yes, we do once again apologize for that. Let's just sample some of the tweets we have received so far. We have Kalinde who is saying, together we can connect the world one community at a time. We need more community network summits across the region to help people learn what it takes to build and sustain their own community networks. We move on to Zenga who is saying, community networks continue to provide a sustainable solution to connectivity gaps in Africa and across the globe. Simple tech for big problems, that is community network. We have Mehdi who is saying, as we develop our social community networks, let us also provide valuable guidance, advice, and leadership to these communities as they build their networks. We have Bilha who is saying, building a community network is so empowering. Yeah, the transformative effects go beyond technology and access. It is the power of communities manifesting things for themselves, which is transformational in so many ways. Again, going back to the sweat theory that one of our guests had actually put forward. I can see Cecilia Maundo enjoying the show. Thank you very much for your tweets. You can keep sending them through using the hashtag TakeOnTech on Twitter. Our SMS number is 20154. Back to you, Grace.
Thank you so much, Jane. Again, we are talking to Michuki Mwangi from the Internet Society, Josephine Miliza from Kiktonet, and Chief Kariuki, all the way from Nakuru. Now, Chief Kariuki, yes, you have listened to what people are saying on social media, and one of the things I have picked is that someone has said it is transformative. And I'm just wondering, from your work with Wananchi in Nakuru, what would you say is the impact, or impact of community networks to the mama mbogas and say ordinary Wananchi?
This is going to create employment, because you find that we have so many graduates from universities that they're trying to look for a job. Another thing is going to improve the security, because when, say for example, we have things like the data entry, where some organization will pay like $2 for each data sheet entry. So if one youth, for example, in a day is able to do like 10 data sheet in a day, that gives them like $2 equivalent of 200 shillings. So it means a day that youth will be making like 2,000. So they can never be involved in crime at all. And then you find that we have mamas in the village who do different kind of small businesses. But this one is going out to expose them to other people. Maybe in the neighborhood, somebody, like for example, there some mamas in my area who prepare this porridge that normally used in what they call Russia, where the traditional kind of dowry payment. And they are very good in doing it, but now people don't know whether they do it. But now, when we come up with a network, they are able now to advertise themselves and say, this is what we do. There are people who do outside catering. They're going to say what we do. We see them people who sell. We have some youth who are so creative. For example, the one group called Ask Club in Lanet. They train other youth how to do different kinds of jobs. But the problem now is that people don't know whether they are there. So when they know that people in the community know that these people are there, they will be able now to go to them. The other youth will also benefit from these programs that are there. Security will be enhanced in a very big way. You find like example of Telegram where you can put like maybe 5,000 people in a WhatsApp, in a Telegram group. So this is, and the other, before I had a very hard time also before, because everybody would call me at night to tell me this is what has happened. There's a house on fire, there's some criminals here like that. But now, with the internet, they'll be able to post issues for themselves. Yeah. So it makes my work very easy. They don't have to struggle. You need a house help, and somebody is looking a job for a house help. They're small things, but they are very important. Say, yes, I need a house help. If you need such a job, come. Maybe you're building a house, and you want some fundis to come and work for you, and you don't know where to get them. But since no internet is there, they can be able to talk to one another. Another thing is going to be so fancy Because maybe from there, they don't have to spend a lot of airtime from the regular, having to buy airtime from others. You can call each other using WhatsApp. You can call each other using YouTube. You can, for me now, for example, I don't have to have a baraza that people congregate together. I just need to let them know I'll be live on Facebook. And they can listen to what the chief is saying. I talk to them, they talk to me, and we are done.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, interesting. I was looking at some of your tweets, in Kiswahili. Yeah. Ng'ombe imepotea hapa kwa mnanda. Sijui kuna mtoto wa nursery imepotea hapa. Very interesting, just the way you communicate. And I will ask you a question towards that. But Josephine, just listening to what Chief Kariuki has said, what would you say is the value of connectivity beyond internet access? Or rather, is there a value of connectivity beyond internet access? Why do we need community networks?
I think that the importance of community networks is that we are not just promoting a culture of consumerism. And by consumerism, I mean that instead of just like consuming the content that is online, we are actually enabling communities for people to be able to create their own content as well and be able to post. So from the examples that Chief Kariuki has given in terms of if you run a business, you're able to market it online. If he's running a meeting, he's able to do it online instead of people coming to him. Those are the day-to-day values that we think are very important at the grassroots level that ordinary or traditional service providers are not like reaching. So for us, we are going beyond and ensuring that just connecting the people themselves, we also offer training because we know that the communities that we work with, not everyone is digital literate. So not everyone understands how to work around a computer. Or even if you have a phone, maybe you just know this one, if it's for WhatsApp, is just to forward those messages, get your blessing type of message, but not really around how can I use this platform for my business, how can I use it also for my community. Another point that I think it's very interesting for me and it's coming to fruition is when we were talking about like connectivity for schools, even the new curriculum had not been developed. So we were just going to schools in Kibera because we felt that they are lagging behind. Other schools are really exposed in terms of computers, but these ones, most of the time they don't have a computer or they have one computer that was donated and it's already not working. So now with the new curriculum, the proposed curriculum that is coming into place, you find that it is assumed that parents will have internet connectivity and it is assumed that parents will have internet-enabled devices. And then on the other side, it is assumed that schools actually have internet and have computers. But the reality is that that is not the case. So now with community networks, as we are going into connecting schools, you can see that we are providing what we call like a full suite. It's not just about like affordable internet, but we are also looking at what platforms can the school use, not just for at the school level, but also to connect to parents. And also, do they have the skills to be able to utilize these technologies?
Mishuki, so we are talking about people establishing their own community networks, and I'm thinking I might want to establish one tomorrow. Are there licensing requirements?
So the good thing about the regulation here in Kenya is that it's quite accommodating to networks that actually want to build using the Wi-Fi technology. It says actually just put an application to the regulator, they will review, and then they will tell you it's okay to go and build. And basically that's about it. It's actually one of the best in the continent because there are no license fees attached to building it. So it's very easy to do it. The thing is you need to have the structure as a community before you submit it. So you have to have because you have to treat it as a business. And that's why my initial example is using the water project. I like using that because people understand if you don't have it structured, it will fail. And so it's important to have the community structure the the community network the same way they would as a community project, either whether it's a SACCO or whatever it is, that kind of organization they will create, so that they use it to make this application to the regulator and get the approval to just go out and build.
Also, they'll need to actually apply, say, to Communications Authority.
Yes.
That they want to operate a community network.
Yes.
What are the fees involved?
None.
None.
None. They just fill in the form and say, we want to build a community network, and this basically, because it's hotspots, using the Wi-Fi spectrum or technology, and so the regulator will just review that, and if it meets the requirements, which is basically very standard, then they will just get a permission. I think, Josephine, you have had to do that, and it was very straightforward.
What did you do? You know, because I'm hearing Wi-Fi, then I'm wondering, do I need to go to a service provider to get Wi-Fi? Probably you can just tell us quickly.
Okay, I think what Michuki is saying is that for you to operate in this area is that you need the license, and it's just like how you want to start a business and you go to Kanjo or City Council for you to get a license to put up a business or to start a barber shop, or even if it's a salon. So because of the technology that we are using, which is Wi-Fi, that is an unlicensed technology. So the application process, you go to the Communications Authority website, you'll find in the application form, you fill it in, and then you submit to them with the required documents, which is like a registration of the organization, and a bit about like what the network is for and who it's targeted to, so a write-up, and then you submit it back to them, they will review and then give you a license to operate. So that is free.
Okay, all of you have worked in community networks, and I'm just interested, what form of support would community networks be interested in, say, from the businesses or the government or civil society? And maybe we start with you, Chief Kariuki.
I'll give an example. We have the iHub. They came to Nanette, and we trained the women group on how to use different kind of applications. For example, the Chamasoft, something that how they can do bookkeeping online, things like that. But the challenge is on how, since we didn't have the internet, we didn't know how to store the data or something, they could not be able to do anything. So with the kind of need we'll need is that we'll have different volunteers who come and be able to come and train the people on how to use the internet. Or the better use is on to differentiate between the internet, the networks and the conventional internet. So this is going to change, by people getting the skills, business skills, and also they're going to be able to know when they're making profit or not. Even on burger days, today I sold burger of 10 shillings, I bought at this much. At the end of the month, I'll know how much I've made, which is very, very important. We need, and I'm sure at the end of the day that when you have a noble idea, everybody wants to support anything that is transforming life.
I'm told by the producer that we are almost done, and I have just one quick question to you, Chief Kariuki, from Tevin Mwenda. And he says, I must ask you this, that you are a public figure and you communicate a lot on Twitter using social media. So he's asking, can a public figure be allowed to block anyone from accessing their tweets?
By the word you say, the public figure, you belong to the public, the good and the bad. That's you achieve. Whether you are a normal person, you are crazy, you are good, smart or not smart, I am their servant. So I cannot block nobody. At the same time is that the bad people make you better. Yes, sometimes the negative generates the positive. So to me, I don't block nobody, unless it says so much derogatory in a sense that it translates to insults like that. I find sometimes it's not encouraging for me because people visit my page. So what I do is that I don't block them. I'll answer some people, I'll not others, because there's nothing much you can do about the haters. You hang around with them until when God gives you something else to do.
All right, Take on Tech. You've been watching Take on Tech. Community networks has been our topic, and how people can build their own. We hope you have gained some knowledge, and those of you who are interested in starting community networks, you can always consult Michuki Mwangi from ISOC. That is the Internet Society. He's the Africa Development Manager. And Josephine Miliza, who is a network engineer from Kiptonet, and who runs Tunapanda Community Network. And Chief Kariuki, all the way from Nakuru, and who also runs a community network. So we wind up, but we take you back to Jane to just tell us what's happening on social media. Again, thank you very much. My name is Grace Gidaiga.
All right, just one closing tweet from Twahir Kasim, who says, Chief Kariuki has proved that when JICO can be mobilized to positively use the internet, community networks are definitely the way to go. And with that, we want to bring Take on Tech to a close, but we absolutely appreciate you for being with us from the beginning. Be sure to join us again next week, right here for another edition of Take on Tech. My name is Jinwon Boy. Do have a lovely evening. God bless.